Welcome to Yellow Submarine. Today we are going to be talking and looking at 5 unanswered questions back to the Beatles Disney Plus Get Back movie. Before you proceed, kindly like and subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell to get our latest update. Directed by 3-time Oscar-winning filmmaker Peter Jackson, The Lord of the Rings trilogy, They Shall Not Grow Old, The Beatles Get Back takes audiences back in time to the band's January 1969 recording sessions, which became a pivotal moment in music history. The docuseries showcases the Beatles' creative process as they attempt to write 14 new songs in preparation for their first live concert in over 2 years. Faced with a nearly impossible deadline, the strong bonds of friendship shared by John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr are put to the test. The docuseries is compiled from nearly 60 hours of unseen footage shot over 21 days, directed by Michael Lindsay Hogg in 1969, and from more than 150 hours of unheard audio, most of which had been locked in a vault for over half a century. Jackson is the only person in 50 years to have been given access to this Beatles treasure trove, all of which has now been brilliantly restored. What emerges is an unbelievably intimate portrait of the Beatles, showing how, with their backs against the wall, they could still rely on their friendship, good humor, and creative genius. While plans derail and relationships are put to the test, some of the world's most iconic songs are composed and performed. The docuseries features, for the first time in its entirety, the Beatles' last live performance as a group, the unforgettable rooftop concert on London's Savile Row, as well as other songs and classic compositions featured on the band's final 2 albums, Abbey Road and Let It Be. An exciting new collaboration between the Beatles and Jackson presented by the Walt Disney Studios in association with Apple Corps Limited and Wingnut Films Productions Limited. The Beatles Get Back is directed by Peter Jackson, produced by Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, Yoko Ono Lennon, Olivia Harrison, Peter Jackson, Claire Olson, They Shall Not Grow Old, and Jonathan Clyde, 8 Days a Week, with Apple Corps' Jeff Jones, 8 Days a Week, and Kev Kamen's The Hobbit trilogy serving as executive producers. Jabez Olson, Rogue One: A Star Wars Story, serves as the film's editor. The music supervisor is Giles Martin, Rocket Man. Michael Hedges, The Adventures of Tintin, and Brent Burge, The Hobbit trilogy, serve as the series' re-recording mixers, and the music is mixed by Giles Martin and Sam Ockel. Yesterday. It is a hard time putting the Beatles Get Back behind me, and not only because it's 8 hours long. Get Back got a hold on me, partly because the Beatles, in addition to having many other virtues, were a great hang. Their charisma and rapport cannot be separated from their recordings. The former influenced the latter, but their appealing, if partly performative, public personas have almost as much to do with their undimmed legend as the music they made. When soon-to-be Beatles manager Brian Epstein watched the band perform for the first time in 1961, he was struck not just by their appearance and sound, but by their sense of humor and personal charm. Even though the band was approaching the precipice when it made Let It Be, Get Back is bursting with Beatles allure. No, I know some of you must be sick of hearing and reading about the Beatles by now. Give it a few centuries for the fuss to die down. Get Back is a passable facsimile of sitting in a studio with an engaging group of friends who happen to be some of the best songwriters ever. Spend enough time bathed in the incandescent creativity and the nexus of 60s culture, and the present can't help but seem drab by comparison. To trot out an overused expression, the Beatles Get Back is a vibe, one that's difficult to forget and impossible to replicate in real life. Who looks the best in Get Back? That's easy. George when he wore this. But I'm not talking about who had the best outfit. Which Beatles stock climbed the most because this footage finally came to light? It could be a coincidence, but Get Back's biggest Beatle beneficiaries are the 2 who survived to see it. It is Get Back Boost's Paul. He has the most luscious hair, the most ambitious vision, the most indomitable work ethic, and most of Let It Be's best songs. It's not surprising that Paul is pumped about Get Back, because it's helped him walk back a PR misstep he made in 1970 that helped create a lasting perception that he'd broken up the band. In reality, he was the last to leave and the most committed to keeping the group together. Get Back makes clear that while Paul's controlling tendencies were pissing off George and John, they were also the impetus for the Beatles to be where they were, making music and movies for us to enjoy. And no, he wasn't looking at Yoko when he was singing Get Back. And then there's Ringo, the magic Christian star, who quietly conveys why he was the missing piece that put the group over the top. As Linda McCartney observed, he was the easiest Beatle to be around, the oldest, the most mellow, and the quickest with comic relief. Some people might find it humbling or maddening to be the mere mortal plunking out the chords to Taking a Trip to Carolina while your pals are composing Something and Let It Be. That disparity in songwriting skill didn't seem to bother Ringo, who was happy to be in a beloved band and to make its music better. He showed up on time, was open to input, and prepared to play. And when he wasn't catching some shut-eye or passing some gas, he was working out the chords to Octopus's Garden, with a little help from his friends. Ringo was the glue guy and an invaluable buffer between the more combative Beatles. The way he took his band's drama in stride helps explain why he looks about 60 at age 81. Is Get Back the ideal length? When Let It Be, Naked came out in 2003, it was accompanied by a 22-minute bonus disc called Fly on the Wall, which cut together assorted studio chatter and excerpts of songs from the Let It Be sessions. Jackson was the one with unfettered access to almost 60 hours of video and more than twice as much audio, so he has the best sense of the directorial roads not taken. On the one hand, anything Beatles related is historically significant, so it must have been difficult to stick most of the footage back in the vault. On the other hand, Jackson isn't known for his economical editing, so whatever he couldn't find room for must have been boring or redundant indeed. Jackson is ultra enthused about all things Beatles, and it's clear that he made Get Back with fellow Fab heads in mind. Beatles fans are a big demographic, but there's still a significant barrier to entry here. Some people aren't willing to watch 8 hours of anything. Others would be down for a standard-length doc about the Beatles, but would balk at devoting a third of their day to the making of a middling album, by Beatles standards. Look, I like Don't Let Me Down, but I know how it goes. An 8-hour runtime makes Get Back an event, a gourmet meal to be digested and discussed over several sittings. It's long enough to include the unproductive days that provide a more complete picture of the Beatles' time at Twickenham. And it's long enough for viewers to feel like they've taken a trip and immersed in a milieu. The length also sets it apart in a saturated Beatles nostalgia market. There's no shortage of regular-length movies about the Beatles already out there if that's what you want. And it would have been a disservice to those with bottomless Beatles appetites to bury much more of this gold again. Would Get Back's format fit anything else? Get Back is a testament to the brilliance of the Beatles, but its message is more universal than that. Music is amazing. No, that's not news. Even among the songs on Let It Be, an album slapped together quickly, Get Back is a bit of an outlier. Although the movie makes it sound as if the Beatles were starting from scratch, many of the songs that ended up on the album, or on Abbey Road, had been bouncing around their brains for months or years. But when Paul played Get Back, he did do it live. It's the clearest look at music history happening in the studio since Bruce Dickinson demanded more cowbell. Granted, it's not as if you or I could make cranking out a hit look as effortless. This is Paul McCartney, whose combination of genius and practice helped him write timeless songs in his sleep. I had one this morning, he says before playing the complete melody of The Back Seat of My Car. So yes, the Beatles set a high bar. But bands will be formed because someone saw Paul write Get Back or Harrison stroll in and announce that he wrote I Me Mine or Old Brown Shoe overnight. You can't write a book or make a feature film or probably program a game by yourself in one night. But if you're diligent, talented, and lucky, you can write a song on the spot that people won't stop singing for 50 plus years. Which work of art do you wish you could watch springing into existence? The way we can lurk in Let It Be's delivery room. Even if every artist hired a Michael Lindsay Hogg, the Get Back model wouldn't work for everything. You could watch a novelist in the midst of a masterpiece, but it wouldn't be much fun to watch someone sit silently and type. The magic of making music, as depicted in Get Back, is that it's an intoxicating, spontaneous spectator sport. You can see and hear it happening, whether it's Paul, Tucson, Arizona, or George, Attracts Me Like No Other Lover, fumbling for a line, or the whole band trying out a faster tempo for Get Back. There's already too much TV to keep up with, and a lot of the documentaries are too long as it is. But here's hoping more bands will keep their cameras on when they're working, just in case inspiration strikes. Should we lament that the Beatles broke up? Sometimes it seems as if the Beatles never called it quits. Get Back is the latest in a long line of recent reasons to re-celebrate them. The Beatles Anthology, or One, or Love, or the Beatles Rock Band, or their catalog gracing music streaming services, or Yesterday. Yet even though they're inescapable, Get Back is bittersweet, not only because it documents the Beatles getting very near the end of their formal alliance, but because it's a portrait of four spiritual siblings on the verge of falling out of friendship, at least for a while. It's hard to hear McCartney tell Lennon, "Probably when we're all very old, we'll all agree with each other, and we'll all sing together," and not regret that he and Lennon would almost never sing together again after the Beatles broke up, or that Lennon didn't get to grow old at all. It's also hard to hear the Beatles run through inchoate or nearly fully formed versions of future solo songs such as Gimme Some Truth, Jealous Guy, All Things Must Pass, Another Day, and The Backseat of My Car without dreaming about the Beatles' albums that could have been. Combine the highlights of the albums that John, George, and Paul put out in 70 and 71 alone, and you'd have the makings of the best Beatles album ever, if not the top two. But it's not as though the Beatles could have been much better regarded than they already are. Say the group had mended fences, stuck it out for 5 years, and kept recording at something close to their previous pace. They might have had 6 or 7 solid albums after Abbey Road. The fact that the Beatles got together during their formative years as musicians made it possible for them to reach the heights that they did. But by '69, they were mostly writing separately. In Get Back, some of their songs improve with input or significant contributions from others, but most are fairly fully formed when they're introduced to the group. On top of that, they all sang their songs. Granted, it would have been nice to hear what the other Beatles brought to the other solo songs, but although the Beatles had a distinctive sound, the absence of that sound was arguably less costly and transformative than, say, the Stones or the Who splitting up at the same time would have been for early 70s Jagger, Richard, and Townsend solo songs. The Beatles together would have written some music that never actually came to be. But would Beatle John have felt free to record the screams and confessional lyrics of Plastic Ono Band? Would Beatle Paul have brought the band to Scotland to preserve the pastoral beauty of Ram? Would Beatle George have convinced John and Paul to make room for every strong song from All Things Must Pass? More broadly, would it have been better if the Beatles had plateaued, slumped, and fallen out of favor in the 70s or 80s, as most of their peers and their solo output did, instead of ending on an ever-evolving upswing? Could there have been a more appropriate ending than the end? There may be a better Beatles timeline than this one in the musical multiverse, but as McCartney once sang, this wasn't bad, so a much better place would have to be special. No need to be sad. Especially not now that whenever we want, we can time travel to where the Beatles once belonged.